I'm Gill Osgerby, Programme Director for Hull Maritime.
And I'm Sion Atkinson, Capital Development Manager for Hull Maritime.
Welcome to the North End Shipyard. North End Shipyard is on High Street, beside the River Hull, behind Hull College. It's actually the historic former entrance to Queen's Dock, which today is Queen's Gardens. It's a real hidden gem of the city, and we are completely transforming it into a brand new visitor attraction and the permanent home for the Arctic Corsair. It's going to be an incredible experience. Visitors will walk through a bespoke visitor centre, see the Arctic Corsair sitting proudly in her new dry dock, and view the beautifully restored and relocated historic Scotch derrick crane up close. Best of all, you won't just look at the ship from afar. You'll be able to step on board and also head right down into the very bottom of the dry dock for a completely unique perspective.
It's actually a first of its kind for a visitor attraction in the UK. We have designed and built it to strict passive house standards, making it a highly sustainable, carbon negative construction. It allows us to perfectly set the scene before visitors board the Arctic Corsair, which is the city's last surviving sidewinder trawler and an icon representing the city's deep sea fishing heritage.
She's been in safe hands. We removed her from her old wet berth in the River Hull, where decades sitting in the silt and salt water had really taken its toll. We handed her over to Dunstan's, a fantastic local ship repair company based at William Wright Dock in Hull. They've done a magnificent restoration job, putting her in excellent condition to preserve her for the next 100 years. Bringing her back to the River Hull completes a beautiful full life cycle, as her first ever journey was in 1960 down this very river from her builders Cook, Welton and Gemmell, who were based in Beverley.
It's a massive engineering puzzle that the team have been working on for years. This is no longer the type of movement regularly seen along the River Hull anymore, and the river has changed a lot from its historic peak of activity. Because her engines no longer operate, she cannot move under her own power, so she will be towed by tugs all the way along the Humber estuary and up to the River Hull. To make it work, we need a lot of conditions to come together. We need precise tidal heights so there is enough water to get her upstream. However, if the tide is too high, the tidal barrier at the mouth of the river deploys to protect the city from flooding, which would block the route. This gives us a very small, precise window on just a few occasions a year to make the journey. She must also safely navigate through 4 major bridges connecting East and West Hull, capped off with a tight 90-degree turn into the dock entrance. Because the ship is actually longer than the river is wide at this point, it's a highly challenging, expert manoeuvre. Right now, once our dredging is finished, we will be cutting the existing gate away from its hinges. We've engineered a brand new gate with custom channels to form a completely watertight seal. We'll slide this in temporarily to block out the river silt from entering the dock. Then, the day before the ship moves, we'll lift it out to flood the dock, bringing the Arctic Corsair in via the river, and drop the gate back down on low tide to seal her in permanently. Once we pump the dock dry and clean it out, we'll construct the final structural access elements, including a new visitor gangway for access aboard, while a lift and staircase will bring the public down to the dock bottom for a unique perspective.
This dredging campaign is solely to ensure the safe arrival of the Arctic Corsair and the installation of that new gate. Because the trawler is longer than the river is wide, we have to cut out specific silt banks to create a safe turning circle. The main navigation channel itself is already deep enough, so we only need to clear the specific areas above Drypool Bridge to make that space for that turn. We actually ran a full trial run back in April using substitute barges with the Arctic Corsair's dimensions to confirm exactly how much space was needed.
When we launched the project, we always knew that dredging would be required, and all river dredging requires a licence from the Marine Management Organisation, the MMO. We originally agreed on a method with the MMO to use natural tidal currents to disperse the silt as we moved it. However, with the project already underway, the thresholds changed regarding what was deemed an acceptable level of contamination within the silt for that approach, forcing us to completely change our strategy to a new method. Because we are digging deep into the silt banks, we are exposing layers of material from the area's intense industrial past. The mud contains legacy contaminants like old oils, diesel, and heavy marine paints. To give you the technical names, we are dealing with elevated levels of total petroleum hydrocarbons, TPHs, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs. Because these chemical compounds are buried currently within the silt banks, environmental laws strictly prohibit us from just letting them wash away freely into the wider river ecosystem when we uncover them. We are utilising a cutter suction dredger, which acts like a highly targeted underwater drill bit with a vacuum attached to remove the 3,500 cubic metres of silt required. This method vacuums up a mixture that is roughly 15% solid and 85% river water. Because of that massive volume of liquid, we needed an equally massive holding tank to separate the solids from the water, which is why we are utilising the historic North Dock right next to our dry dock. We are essentially using North Dock as a giant bathtub. We pump the mixture in, let the heavy contaminated solids settle to the bottom, and then skim the water off the top to be filtered and returned to the river. The concentrated solid mud left at the bottom will then be dug out and trucked away to a specialist licensed land disposal site.
It meant an immense effort that was never foreseen until the change of approach was required. Because the North Dock is a listed structure, we had to secure planning permission just to use it as a temporary holding tank. We then had to completely empty the dock of its existing content to give us the ability to store our material. And finally, to return the separated water back into the environment, we had to secure a water discharge consent from the Environment Agency.
It is incredibly safe, and it's a strict condition of our Environment Agency consent to monitor the water quality. Because the river water comes into direct contact with the contaminated silt during the vacuuming process, we have to treat it. We pass the water through advanced specialist filtration units. This advanced system strips out even the smallest contaminated particles, bringing the water quality back to the approved level before it is discharged right back into the river. Yes, silt deposits are a completely natural, ongoing part of the tidal river hull, given the area's geography, and it will return over time. But our dredging isn't meant to clear the river forever. It is strictly to provide a temporary window of opportunity to bring the Arctic Corsair into our new home safely. Once you are securely inside and the new dock gate is sealed, the river can return to its natural state without affecting the ship at all.
The reality is that no two dredging campaigns are the same. Each project is entirely unique, meaning that any future campaigns within the river would be subject to their own separate assessment based on their own specific location, depth requirements, and environmental fines. We have a very small number of precise tidal windows available for a move of this scale. We're working closely with our contractors, marine experts, and the whole project team to ensure every single box is ticked before she makes the journey. We'll be announcing information on dates as soon as we are able, based on the results of the current activities. We want the whole city to play a part, share in the excitement, and enjoy the spectacle of watching the Arctic Corsair move for the final time before welcoming them to the completed North End Shipyard site. We hope you've enjoyed your behind-the-scenes tour of the North End Shipyard.
Watch this space for further updates.
Bye!